Just let it run.
Well, that's the joke. Yeah. Except for when we're eating our squash bug biscuits. To help yourself to more diet.
So, tell me, you first is it referred to John Thompson?
When I was in France, I developed appendicitis and was sent to a hospital, l'hôpital des enfants malades, which is the only place the nuns could send me, because they didn't have the right to sign the operation note, because stepmother had forgotten to give them that right. Stepmother was absolutely furious because she wasn't at the address she'd given them, and in order to get operation rights and not to break the law, they sent an Interpol off to find stepmother to get permission for my operation. So I was operated on, and in fact the appendix wasn't inflamed at all. I think it was the typical anxiety syndrome of an unhappy child who was attention seeking, probably. And not knowing those things when you're 13. The very sensible surgeon who operated said, yes, but your daughter was not all right. Okay, it wasn't appendicitis, but she was very distressed and very disturbed. And in my opinion, needs to be seen by a psychiatrist. And I said, I don't want to be seen by anybody, so that I have to talk in French. I was being difficult because I wanted to go back to Australia. I said, if you just sent me back to Australia, there wouldn't be anything the matter with me. And so John Thompson was around about in Paris at that time, and they called him in, and he spoke with me. And he said, you know, what was the trouble? And I said, well, the whole trouble is I don't want to be here. I don't know anybody in the Northern Hemisphere except stepmother, and I don't like her, and I just want to go home to Daddy. And so he obviously must have got involved in negotiations with stepmother and realised that she had no intention of looking after me nor sending me home. So he spoke with a couple of lawyers, and she was declared an unfit person to bring me out, an unfit parent. There was some kind of Protect the Child Act that was started in France. I don't know what these things were called, because when you're a child, you know, things happen to you rather than you're deciding and making decisions for yourself. So I was then placed under his guardianship, but I do recall a conversation in which he explained to me that although he would take care of me and make sure I had somewhere to live and a way of paying for where I lived, he had no money, and there could be no money coming from him to look after me. He made it quite clear to stepmother, who was very wealthy in her own right. And he found me, I was chucked out of school because my fees hadn't been paid, so the nuns wouldn't have me back. Fair enough, it was post-war France, they were very poor in the Dominican. And Eau Vive, which was a wonderful place where he lived, had a convent opposite the road, sort of as close as those other old stone houses over the road. He arranged with the nuns that I could live there, and if I prepared meals and vegetables in exchange, if I did an extra work on Saturday morning, would that pay for my train fare up to university? He arranged for me to go to university as well, which was not fee paying. So the nuns agreed to that, and I had my own room, which was very much like a nun cell, because it was an old convent converted to take in unwanted people and homeless. And I used to spend a lot of the weekend after I'd done my visit over with Dr. Thompson, and he had a little cottage on this beautiful estate. In a way, not unlike Cotswold stone, with lovely walls and high walls though, because they were convent-like. And he kept goats, and he made his own cheese, and he made his own jam. He had lots of apple orchards, and we'd gather apples together with the boys, who were quite a bit older than I was. I can't remember exactly, but I think 5 years older, 4 or 5 years older anyway. And they weren't there all the time because they were partly studying, and I was, of course, only with Dr. T on Saturday afternoons, evenings and Sundays. And as a treat, he'd taken me to Sourchoir, which was the only music I ever heard. Having had a childhood totally swamped with music, I was then with no music, and so to go to even a religious service and hear the monks singing was providing some of that Gregorian chant, which I then learnt to love, and that was very comforting. And he was very gentle and quiet, and everybody had great respect for him, to the extent that the nuns spoke of him as our Saint John. Over the road, they'd refer to him, and they'd say to me when I said, I've finished in the kitchen, now I go over. She said, if you'll be safe, you'll be with St. John. So over I go, and that was really rather sweet. And occasionally I could say, instead of eating with you, may I eat with Dr. Thompson? And they said, of course, it's a privilege. So off I go, and that was nice. They were my best memories of France. When I finished, I went every day during the term time to National Catholic, which is the Catholic Sorbonne, and did my studies there, which was a one-year course for foreigners who managed to get me into. Although I was underage, fortunately they didn't ask me my age, and he said, look, it's not exactly telling a lie. It's what I call a white lie. Don't answer too many questions. And so when I had to fill out a form with my age, I just absentmindedly left it off and things like that. So although you had to be 18 to go to university, I was only 15 and a half. And 14 and a half, I think, the beginning of the year, 15 and a half when I finished. Because I was not 16 when in the school holidays, university holidays were long. You put your name down to be an au pair girl, and I don't know if he was instrumental in helping to find this lovely family, of whom I grew very fond. I described them in the book and altered slightly because there were actually 5 children under 9, and I changed their names in case they should ever come across the book, because obviously, because of Monsieur's wanderings, the children mightn't want to know that their dad had 2 families and had abandoned one of them. Exactly as I changed my husband's name in the book because I didn't want his second family to know that. So that's the confusion about people's names. I changed most people's names in the book. Except he said, I didn't change Dr. T, did I? No. He used Dr. T because I felt safe with that. I changed Sebastian and Matthew because I didn't feel safe about that because I couldn't get their permission. Anyway, when he said at the end of this whole year, and I got my certificate, I've been offered a job in Oxford. Would you like to stay on in France, or would you like to come with me? I can arrange for you to do either. And I said, I don't want to stay here, certainly not without you, that would be just unbelievably awful. So please can I come to Oxford? I saw Oxford as the next stepping stone back to Australia, see, that was my plan. And so he must have written round and found the Morgan families as good Catholics who took in a local priest lived with them sometimes. And I didn't know one of the boys lived there, and I don't remember one of them living there at the same time as I did, but maybe...
Before Sebastian lived there.
Sebastian had lived there previously, had he tried. But he didn't live there at the same time as I did he? No. One of the reasons, well, there are 2 reasons for my memory losses. One is the car accident did knock out all the Russian studies, for instance, the bomb, except for the alphabet and perhaps 100 words, whereas I was a Russian scholar. And I have blocked out, for psychological reasons, unattractive events which I just couldn't bear to recall. So that's why, as a witness, I would be unreliable in certain things that I just plain don't know.
Okay, let me ask you just a few questions about Eau Vive. How do you remember, what sort of Who was that Eau Vive? Who lived there? What was it for?
I didn't meet the other people very much. I went straight to his cottage. I think it was communal living, but I really can't tell you. I just can't remember. It may have been retired priest and nun. I don't know.
And do you remember anyone John Thompson was caring for there?
Only the boys.
Only the boys. So that's Sebastian
And that's it.
Okay. And do you remember, did John have his dog, Tonio?
I don't think he could have, because I adored old animals when I was familiar. I remember the goats, he was very fond of them. They were friendly goats.
Okay.
He used to play with.
And did you have a cook there? Elizabeth?
No. He
Elizabeth?
did his own meals.
He did his own meals. Okay. Elizabeth was gone already. Do you remember people talking about Pere Tomas TV? Pere Tomas?
No. But I seem to recall the Ennaus movement, and that he was in some way involved with that, and that was just setting up the Resto du Coeur, which has kept on the saintly, very elderly man. I think he's either only just recently died, or he set up a restaurant for homeless people throughout France.
Okay.
And that was Ennaus, E-N-N-A-U-S, and he was often going off to those meetings and helping and fundraising. And I can remember fetes at Eau Vive where the general public would come, and it was a little away from the village, so it was about a 10-15 minute walk to the station that was that Police? Was that in Police in the station?
What he?
Mortefontaine, that's right, Sophie, yeah.
Do you remember John Thompson's library? Yeah.
Wonderful collection of books everywhere.
Okay, and what books do you remember? Did you lend them? And did you read? Did you browse and read?
No. There were also very precious things that I was kind of afraid to borrow. I was very afraid. I was very afraid of doing anything wrong. Not that I was afraid of him, but I was in that stage where you do everything right because you were afraid of being scolded. I was very vulnerable during that year. When I was in Sydney as a school kid, I was really good at being naughty, which you can in a safe environment, but as soon as I got to France, boarding school, and even at the convent, I would be the extra good person who always did extra duties and always did an extra 15 minutes of peeling carrots and things for the fear of not fitting in. So no, I didn't bother him.
But did he suggest any books for you to read? Or, at that time, was he still working at UNESCO?
Yes, he was.
He was.
And I thought that when he left Oxford he was going to UNESCO. But that was presumption rather than knowledge.
Okay. So, he was still going to UNESCO. He didn't. But what year did you, what year are you recollected? Is it
55, 56, because it was in 1950, March of 56. It was that year, later that year, that we left, at the end of the university year, which would be June. Then I spent July and August with the family in Brittany. So it would have been September, October perhaps, we went to Oxford.
Okay. And did he give you any sort of, make any suggestions about, things to do and see in Paris or meet?
No. It was very much a case of catch the train, go in, do your lectures and come straight home. For one thing, it was quite late and it was getting dark, and just to join the winter I was a little bit scared coming and going on my own. That was the time of the Arab rebellion too in Paris, and Albert Einstein, and they had all these demonstrations in the streets. I didn't feel very safe going around, and unfortunately many of the sites that other people would have gone up in a group to see, or maybe with somebody else. Once or twice I'd go with Sebastian and see things like we have La Chaise and one of the, I think the Musée H Auden, but otherwise I didn't like doing touristy things. I went to Notre Dame a couple of times on my own, where I'd be appalled by the behaviour of American tourists and come home and tell him about it and how I said I'm not American, because I was so ashamed of the way they behaved. And I couldn't work out, what's he Canadian?
Well, what was his French? How do you remember his nationality?
I asked him, perhaps. But he certainly wasn't, he certainly never spoke with an accent that was just American, so he must have been English-Canadian, Anglo-Canadian, I presume. He was a terribly private man. He wasn't talk forthcoming. And if I asked him questions, it had to be led from me. And perhaps because he'd been aware of the sensitivity of children and distressed children, he didn't provoke sensitive questions and answers. And even on one occasion I remember when he taught me how to make jelly out of that lovely apple jelly that went with his goat cheese, and the pressure cooker had exploded in the kitchen. I had learned how to roll down the side of my face, but I was so overwhelmed with the fact that it had gone all over the kitchen and all over the ceiling that I was wiping that off when he came in, and he said, look at your face, the whole side of your face is burnt. And he was so sweet and gentle and wiping it off and finding ice for me, and I said, I'm so sorry, the whole house was covered in apples, and it was all sugar apple too, and he was just so kind. And that was a really vivid memory because I hadn't known the awful kindness at that stage.
Do you remember any guests he had in England?
In England?
From England, who visited Eau Vive?
No, I don't.
She never introduced you to her?
No.
Did your stepmother visit?
My stepmother only came once, which was to tell me that my father had been disgraced in Sydney, but she didn't tell me what had happened. She just said your father's in trouble and we will stand by him. And I had no idea what she meant. Was he in debt? Was he sick? She didn't tell me what it was, but she didn't come and visit and come and stay other than on that occasion. And when she did come, she came and she said to the nuns, can I go and wash my hands somewhere? And she wanted to go to the toilet, and I took evil pleasure in the fact that there was a room where you washed your hands and another one where you went to the toilet and you had to come back and ask, and I horrid child. But he didn't come over to that meeting with me. I faced her alone and then talked with him about it later. And I can remember saying, what on earth do you think Daddy's done? And he wasn't forthcoming either. Life was a great mystery tour where you learned not to ask too many questions.
So there was no, somebody who spoke, the person who mentioned the name of your stepmother to me was someone called Natasha Spender.
Well, I remember through links later that Natasha lived in Constantine, who had known stepmother when they were at Juilliard together, that's my assumption. And they had married the poet Stephen Spender, and there was a stage when stepmother rented a house in southeast of Alfriston for a long weekend, and I saw her there then once, because part of the court order was that I would never have to see her again if I didn't want to. And John was very good at seeing that I didn't have to see her. He'd say, do you want to see stepmother? And I don't know what to call it, what to call her Margaret. And I'd say no, but on that one important occasion I'd say, well, I suppose I have to.
And that was when you were already in Oxford?
No, the ones that she came to the convent. But then when we were in Oxford, yes, I'd been in Oxford prior to the event in Alfriston. That was the only time I saw her, was on that one occasion. And as far as I know, after that, she lived elsewhere. She never lived with her father. Father lived in St John's Wood, and he did have interesting guests, like the Spenders, and Natasha used to come, and she was very pleasant and easy to talk to, and a motherly, beautiful person in every way. But I didn't get to know her other than as an artist, one revered. I mean, musical artist.
Interesting. She probably knew your mother, your stepmother. Do you remember the name of any of the French children's doctors, the first child psychiatrist?
Yes, there was the French psychiatrist who, his name I don't remember, who was the one who found Dr. Thompson.
Okay, well, if I actually name Dr. Preyo?
Might be. That sounds very likely. That sounds really good. It was a bit like theirs. So I almost touched with him.
And did you see him repeatedly? Did he sort of come by?
Yes, he was the one who decided that I was very disturbed and needed help.
Yeah, but when you were at Eau Vive, when you were near Eau Vive?
No, when I was in the October hospital like that, and then moved to the American hospital.
Okay.
When once stepmother gave her permission to operate, I was moved to the American hospital. She had some insurance or something which was had. And perhaps they always see resident psychiatrists.
Do you remember anything else about activities going on in Eau Vive or?
Just a happy occasions when they had lots of flags flying and bunching up to celebrate the sales of homemade, he got his own vegetables as well, homemade things and people being jolly and cheerful and buying things and making things for the stores and participating in the nuns across the road where I live.
What was the name of the convent where you lived?
Letani. Okay. And that was a two-story building which housed retired nuns, and there was a little old lady who had a very weak heart and was very, very cold all the time because she had terrible circulation. She was the one I sold my boots to, and I can't remember if that's in the book or not, because they did so many things to my book, and I wouldn't read after the 44 hours, I wouldn't really read the final version. Sister Leo, the one who's won the Prix de Rome in art, was an interesting woman, and perhaps the only person I felt I could talk to about anything real. But that was still in the very subtitled form. The exposure to truth, because fearful of revealing too much.
Remember someone called Jean Vanier?
No, he was a friend of Socrates, and they used to do things together. But he was a priest, wasn't he? He wasn't a priest, he was a lay person. I was never too sure what people were or what their roles were, you see.
I think he would have been studying theology at that time.
Maybe that's why I thought of him as a spiritual person. What did he go on to do?
He founded a community called Lush, which is caring therapeutic on a sort of family basis for children who are either physically or mentally disabled.
Wonderful.
and also an organisation called Faith and Light. And he actually never took holy orders.
No, he remained alive.
So yeah, you remember, how do you remember?
Only because you said the name.
Okay,
It's just a question of stimulating the future a bit, I think. Because it wasn't a negative experience meeting him. It's strange how the memory shuts down on certain things that remembers others, isn't it? So, also, yes, it really is.
And do you remember any sort of advice that John Thompson gave you, or any sort of...
No, he was very strict about things like he didn't want me to wear makeup or provocative clothing, and I remember being rather resentful about that, because I decided when I went to Oxford that I wouldn't go to church anymore. And I made that decision because when I was looking after the French family, they had these 5 children under 9, and Madame had to confess every time her husband came home on leave that his mother had been really contraceptive last night. I thought that was so stupid. And as a 16-year-old, it's really hard if you've been brought up as a strict Catholic to suddenly decide I'm not going to Mass. And he was very disappointed that I wouldn't go to Mass anymore. But he wouldn't dream of making me. But I felt bad that he was disappointed that I still had to stick for what I thought was right. And that was really a big policy statement on my part. I will not go to church anymore, but every Sunday morning I wake up and think, I'm doing something really wicked, so I'm not going to Mass. It took me years to feel better about that.
But this family, the Morgans...
The Morgans were just holier than now and a bit of a pain. They had an older daughter who was just very virtuous and would speak ill of men and boys as if they were left to be trusted. So whether she had a bad experience from which I don't know. And the only person who was fun to talk to really was the priest, who was kind of human. Mrs. Morgan and her husband were very much like house parents might be in a children's home. I think that's how they seemed to me. They certainly weren't warm and cuddly close anymore. And I think I had bed and breakfast, and I can remember because I used to provide my other meal, which was usually cheese and biscuits, up in my room, and occasionally the big family meal, probably at the weekend. And I worked at Red's house to keep myself there for the birthday when we were drunk by lunchtime, and that was always very embarrassing. And sending other people off, I should understand, and getting there to sign things before midday. Because I hadn't witnessed people who were drunk in until I met my mother. And after, I can't remember how I made it all right with the Morgans to move on. But I went and found other lodgings. I can't remember if we fell out or if I just said, look, I can afford to move on now and I'm going to, but I did. I moved up to Inside Avenue, where I found the most bizarre room with an old lady whose name I can't remember. She had long grey hair that was more than waist length, went down to about here, and she used to vacuum the house at 5 or 6 in the morning naked, and she had this very butch girlfriend who wore plus fours and a hat. She's obviously lesbian, but I didn't know about things like that in those days. It was something they weren't spoken of. That this poor old woman was very miserable, and she committed suicide while I was there. She took an overdose, and she wasn't up to Hoovering one morning. And when I came back from my morning lesson, she still wasn't there, so I very timidly banged on the door and went in and found her. And I was by her bed. And I'd been befriended by the local GP, who I think Dr. Thompson must have arranged that he would be in loco parentis, because it was a time that you had to be signed up for things like polio vaccine. And I went and stayed with the doctor and his wife until I found somewhere else, because I was really spooked by that.
What was the doctor's name?
It'll come to me. I haven't worked that out.
So John Thompson's already left. He's already left to New York, and so.
And maybe I felt safe to leave the Morgans when he left. Maybe I felt kind of abandoned and that I'd make my way on my own.
But there was never any thought of you going to
New York? No. I don't know if I was offered, but anyway, he wouldn't have been able to pay for me, stepmother wouldn't have paid for me, and all I wanted to do was go back to Sydney. But I knew I had to earn enough to pay my fare to get back.
So your stepmother wasn't paying her allowance, you were an allowance, but you were not.
And the argument they would have had would have been about money, I guess. Because when Daddy came back, I didn't know how poor Daddy was, as you can read the book. He used to occasionally send me £2, envelope to invite me to come up to London to see him and stay overnight, and that was a big privilege and really wonderful. I used to treasure those moments. But stepmother never came into the financial picture. I had to stop walking. But that was okay, because I was a good typist and I got jobs easily. And then I got the job at the Child Guidance Clinic, which was sort of ironic next start. And I don't think that Dr. G had a hand in that. I mean, he may have, but I applied for it in the office mail. And got it, as I said, with Dr. Armstead sitting on the floor surrounded tapes. But he couldn't unwind, and he said, I don't know, but if you can work this machine and unravel the tape, you can have the job. And I did, and I did it well, and I sort of loved them there, and they became parent figures for me. It was a very happy, informative time of my life. I loved him there.
I just asked, when you came to Oxford, how often did you see John Thompson?
Not very often. Maybe once a fortnight, something like that. I think he would have wanted me to go to church with him on Sundays, and I wouldn't do that. And he wasn't an intruding sort of man. He probably kept an eye on me from afar and would bring the orphans, and that's how it was, maybe. But I saw very little of him, and then he did come to see me to tell me he was going to New York, and I felt very much more alone then. Although funny enough, he hadn't been an active part of my life. At least he'd been in the same country.
So you haven't seen him sort of mentioning again, sort of suggestions what you should be reading, things that you might read, or... Yes.
I wanted to do French immersion and Russian. And in order to do that, I had to... all my qualifications were wrong, because there were primary qualifications from Australia, and then they were sort of tertiary from France, but they were tertiary, and I had no secondary education. So I went to a teacher training, to Deep Lawn Tutorial College, which was Crown College, and I did French, Greek, English, maths, and biology. I think they were the things you had to do to go to university, which I did, and got accepted into the Russian French courses.
You applied for Canada? Do you know why you picked Canada, or was it you that picked it?
I think they were offering Russian, and the chance of getting a scholarship there was greater. And because I've had this fantastic tuition from Plastomac, Sister Lydia, and Mrs. Figures, who did the grammar side of things, I sailed through all the exams. And it was so thrilling to win something in my own right, because it was me, and then so crushing when Dad was asked to pay a third of the fees, which was the way in those days. Yes, I was very proud of achieving that. And Dad was very disappointed that I wasn't going to be a musician. Life seemed to consist of people being disappointed in me, but me being pleased with myself. And then when I couldn't go to university, I was very pleased to get the job at the Child Psychiatric School because it was really meaty and really, really exciting. And I wanted to stay there forever because I felt secure. And Dr. Einstein said early on that you're much too bright to just do medical secretary. You must please go to teach training college. And it was he who, when I was in hospital, was he who applied for me to go to teach training college on mental illness.
Something I want to ask was about the child guidance work. Can you describe the clinic to me?
Oh yes, I can. The building's still there, and it's still very similar to the way it was. Have you been in touch with Tom Pierce yet? Okay. I didn't have anything to do with the school. I only had to do with Dr. Armstead was my boss, and Ack, who used in there as well. He was a psychologist. We had a very busy sort of lady called Sylvia Harness, who was the play therapist, and there was a big playroom with a stone tray, and there was a mum and a dad and a house and little domestic animals and a variety of siblings that the children liked to put in the sand play, and basic therapy with her. Elizabeth Coe, who's the godmother who lived in Horrojong in Australia near me, and we're still in touch. She was the social worker who would take the case history. Ack, and the clinical and educational psychologist, would do the assessment of the child, and then Armstead would do the psychiatric assessment of the child. And when I first started there, they had an 18-month waiting list. Can you imagine? You've got a really disturbed child acting out, autistic, emotionally disturbed, and your GP says, oh yes, well I've referred you to the CGC, but there's an 18-month waiting list. And Dr. Armstead said, well, would you all be willing? I will, if you'll all do it. If we all work back every night till 10 and every Saturday, I think we could clear this down to a 3 or 4 week waiting list. And we all agreed to do it voluntarily without money because the authorities didn't pay. And we had the merriest time. We had eating meal together. Someone would go, I usually went up and got takeaway. They'd all throw in some money. And we sit on the floor in the conference room and go through the case history, scared, wrong with her, or so and so. And they treated me just as if I knew something, which was also lovely because I felt that I was part of something. And it was a wonderful service, just fantastic. And the children were referred according to their needs, sometimes Northern Health, which is at the sexual operating school. Yeah. I went on subsequently and taught French in the evenings because they used it as a new local educational authority evening college as well. I taught French at night after the Sorbonne. But it was really an example of the best response for a disturbed child. We had a huge tank for the children and parents to look at, and a cosy, friendly, up-to-date magazines and nice plants around that you would bring in, and nice bickies and things for the children to help themselves through, and really a very exactly what you want today, that there isn't.
Do you remember anything more about the fish tank?
The fish tank, yes. The time that Dr. Armstead used to like to be in charge of cleaning the fish tank, but he wasn't any good at it, see. So he'd put all the fish in a bucket and have me clean the tank. So they spent stuffing out the water, and we had then, and you may, I don't know if she's still alive, Lucy Faithful. She was made at the House of Lords. She was the children's officer for the county, I think, at the time. Lucy Faithful happened to phone, and she said, can I talk to Dr. Armstead? And she said, no, tell her I'm from fishing, and I can't say that, because the fish had jumped out of the little bucket he had because it was too shallow, and there were all these goldfish on the floor, and he was stripping them up with his hands. This thing, silly thing. But the fish tank was quite an integral part of the kids who were a bit disturbed to get them to talk. Because I used to play with the children while the parents were being trained. And that's when Dr. Einstein said, look, you know, you're so good with those kids, you really should go into special ed yourself. And I said, no, I don't want to because I'm happy now. I mightn't be happy then. But it's all turned out right because I did go into that field. And that's why I'm doing it all now.
Did you ever come across any case notes that John Thompson had written?
No, only the current case notes. But even when we went through the 18-month-old, I don't know what happened, but occurred so that there was an 18-month waiting list. Maybe there was a psychiatrist for a period. Could that have been it? Was there a gap between when he left and when Armstead took over? Armstead was very young. He was only 32, and he was also head of the Park Hospital, which was an amazing, apparently, at that age, to be as important as that. He ran both clinics, so the time was limited.
Do you remember a Dr. McInnes?
No, I don't. Was he the county medical officer, maybe?
He was, in a way, his predecessor as well. John Thompson had run it with, under the more or less introduction of McInnes, who had also a post at the Warneford.
Well, maybe that's when things started getting out of hand and they got too many cases referred. Because, yes, Dr. Armstead didn't work at the Warneford very much. He was mainly at the park. He just wouldn't be able to do all three. But, yes, it's interesting, isn't it?
Did people ever refer to John Thompson? Did he ever?
No.
They never spoke to him or they never spoke to him when you were you know, you said, oh well, you know.
He was my guardian. No strange with that. But there was somebody else who came in a little there who I did meet briefly, who was just finishing up because she was highly pregnant, was Susanna Miller, who was an educational psychologist before ACT. And she might still be around. She was a very voluptuous Jewish lady. Everything she did was very theatrical, and the rest of the team was sort of friendly but not over the top. She was a bit scary. We had a lot to do with the children's office, and we'd be on duty all kinds of weird times, which is a service that mightn't have continued. For instance, over Christmas, I can remember that I said, I'll do the Christmas Day and Boxing Day phone line, I'll come in from 9 to 5. And some idiot social worker had released a mother on Christmas leave from the Warneford. She had previously gassed herself and her 3 children and failed. And they sent her home for Christmas with the children. And I phoned through tell Dr. Einstein, and I said, well, you know, it's actually Christmas Eve. I said, look, Christmas Eve, Dr. Einstein's with his family, but I'll get word to him right away. And I rang him right away. I said, quick, help, get up there, do something. And he did indeed. He drove the poor mad woman back to the Warneford and had the children taken back into care. He used to do really weird things like that. And I found that very frightening but exciting, as you would have 18, 19. But certainly, no, that was odd. I don't know why they didn't talk about Dr. T. I really don't. Whether it was that they just didn't know much about him, or if they didn't want to scramble my thoughts and feelings. I don't know.
He went to a place, he went to America for as a psychiatrist. A place called Albert Einstein Medical College.
He mentioned that in an email, and I thought he'd gone to work for UNESCO, and it wasn't. And I remember he was poor as a church mouse at Eau Vive, everybody was. And then people lived really very, very simply, everybody. And if he didn't have his goat cheese and his apples and his jams, it was all a sort of swapping idea, like he made that and other people would bring out the vegetables that he didn't have, and the convent relied pretty heavily on donations from the people who grew things at Eau Vive. So whether it was a self-help farming commune idea Perhaps it was. A bit like a Catholic people. Perhaps. You haven't, have you visited it?
No, it doesn't exist anymore. Although it's psychiatric hospital.
Oh, really?
The bourgeois.
Yes.
I mean, I was going to say, there were tensions between the bourgeois and Eau Vive.
Mm-hmm.
And in the end, the bourgeois had to sell the lot after more or less winding up Eau Vive. And the interesting thing is it sold it to the Assistance Publique in Paris that set up the psychiatric there. And one of the things that John Thompson did do when he was there was to look after disturbed adolescents.
Well, I mean, I guess both Sebastian and Matthew must have been pretty disturbed and you found them too.
Well, he found them, but of course by then, I think Sebastian must have been studying in Oxford. He must have just finished his degree in Oxford and was going, and Matthias would have been, again, he'd actually, I think, done a degree in child psychology, or psychology in Paris, but then also when they started, he was also at Edinburgh Medical School. John Thompson also said, so that year they would have been, they never visited, they never came down to Dixon House or...
I think I saw Sebastian once or twice, but I don't think I saw Matthew again.
So he would have come down to visit...
Dr. T.
Yeah.
And I must have participated, or maybe they came to the Morgan Station and T. Warneford maybe. Because I don't know where Dr. T lived in Oxford. I don't know if I knew when I was there though. I mean, I simply can't remember.
Matthias had a sister?
Did she? Oh.
Whom I've actually met, who's very strong. She kept it.
And what happened to her when he was adopted?
Well, he was both Sebastian, and also Sebastian had a brother, Sebastian's brother is still alive. Sebastian's brother did an apprenticeship in electronic engineering at Robert Bosch, that stayed in Germany. And the sister became a journalist, really. Did you know anything about the father of Matthias? Was that mentioned at all?
I assumed that they were both orphans.
They were.
Ah.
They were both orphans, but under very different circumstances.
Ah. I thought they were both orphans as a result of the war.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I mean, is it my imagination, or was one of them bayoneted through the knee to a table? Or was it one of the parents that was bayoneted through the table?
Matthias' father was a leading socialist politician, and was immediately enough put him in a concentration camp. Then got out of the camp and was part of an illegal resistance theatre. And when there was this Hitler bomb plot in 1944, Matthias' father was arrested. Matthias' mother also was arrested, and Matthias and his sister were also taken in by the SS and were put in a sort of, at one stage it was sort of said that they would go to some camp for children and special, like a children's concentration camp and so on. The mother was released, Anadol, and the father, though, was executed, and I think brutally executed.
That's what I thought. And has the boy not had to watch? I don't think that was one that I would have invented, because I don't think I had a particularly inventive mood, although I suppose if I didn't know the answer to things I might have invented. I just used to just sit here and enjoy life, I wouldn't cope, and just live an opera for the day instead of dealing with reality.
Sebastian's father, Sebastian has a very different background. He'd been sent, the parents had separated, divorced, and he was sent to an elite Nazi school. And the father volunteered for the army, sent to the eastern front, and within a few weeks was killed them. So it was a much more, so Sebastian, it was called Klaus actually, his name Sebastian came with his baptism. And so he was, he had an upbringing that was very sort of conventional and strongly nationalistic, but he shed all of that, and Dr. Thompson seems to have found him as a delinquent youth running wild, and he ran away from his mother, and found him at some point in time, I'm not quite sure, in Berlin. Was there any talk of H Auden?
Yes, but I think that was more my father, that I remember.
Yeah.
And his poetry.
Yeah.
Because you know, used some of his work in his compositions. Could be.
There was Leonard Bernstein did a symphony called Age of Anxiety, his third symphony. Could it be that your father played it?
Conducted it. Could have been. Could have been when he went to Cincinnati. Could be, yes. Because he didn't try to think of his regressions for his sponsors.
But you don't remember anything about Auden's professional poetry or...
No, but my father knew him. I can't remember the John Thompson.
He never spoke. No. They were actually... they were friends, John Thompson, and John Thompson appears in the poem of Auden, Age of Anxiety, on which his symphony is based.
Lovely. So he had a great influence on the people he met, obviously. So what inspired you to write about him? Tell me, why did you decide to make him the subject of your doctorate?
Because he was interesting and significant from the point of view of the Nuremberg medical trial, investigating up to medical atrocities, and his whole issue of informed consent, driving forward saying we need to evaluate this medical research in an ethical framework. And then the question was, well, who was he?
Yes.
And the more I looked into his life, the more it was very complicated. Nothing was obvious about him. And people kept on saying different things. There was first of all, I spoke to a pathologist who did war crimes work with John Thompson.
Yes.
He was the most brilliant person. Really understood the area. Did the most, but never published anything. And then I kept on seeing the name in documents, and really did do things behind the scenes. And the next thing was the finding out that he'd worked at Albert Einstein Medical College. I went to the archivist, and the archivist said, well, two things. One is that his library is at the Bronx Psychiatric Hospital.
He listened to them, right?
Not quite, but it was when he died, he had a close friend who was the head of department at Albert called Milton Rosenbaum. who had, in fact, offered him the job at Albert Einstein.
They developed that name somehow.
They visited Eau Vive.
Maybe that's why. Maybe that's why I remember the name. Maybe I didn't want to meet them.
Okay, so that, and it was Milton Rosenbaum was very, very sick. In fact, there was a French doctor who at that time was working in New York, called Epitol. And then that name bought the library. Because sometimes when he died, there was a lot of death and so on, so bought the library. But then Milton Rosenbaum said, no, we need a proper memorial, so we'll have the books. And so he bought the books back, and Charlie was quite happy with that. And it then became something called the John Thompson Collection, which was originally at the hospital close to Albert Einstein, and then at a certain stage moved across to this Bronx Psychiatric Hospital. Where it's still there, and there's a lot of even things from Eau Vive, religious writings, Stephen Spender, poetry, religion, philosophy, a lot of Freud, John Thompson Jung, so there's a book of...
Well, I think I was a bit in awe of his knowledge, and he was obviously a man of great learning, and although I previously met through famous musicians and successful actors and actresses, I've never met an academic before, and I think I was a bit in awe of that, which is possibly why I didn't say, can I have a quiz at that, because I wasn't at all outgoing. I was very, very shut in. And he wasn't forcing anything on me. I think he didn't want to push the envelope at all. But I obviously was very fragile. And he would have understood as probably professional training and even dealing with difficult children that I was one of them. He didn't know it at the time. And he never made me feel that way. It's very interesting when you subsequently work in the field and you looking after and helping see families and helping the whole family work through it, you realise they're not there that's the great go, there went I. Isn't that interesting?
So it's just sort of, and I think his life can say something about medicine in the 20th century, psychiatry in the 20th century.
And the ethical and unethical practice of medicine in the time.
He was very good with, apparently when he was, people remember him, the catatonic patient. No movement at all. And he was, the other psychiatrists were rather too busy, or also slightly afraid, because a catatonic patient could also turn violent. And what John Thompson apparently would do, he would just sit with them, introduce himself, talk them, and establish some sort of contact, like sort of reaching out the arm, gently moving it. And then, within time, the patient did recover. But he was prepared to sit very, very long hours.
I can imagine that, because he'd go on very, very long walks with me when I was really upset. And he said, I want to talk about it, and I'd say no. And he'd go to walk with me for an hour and a half, and not a word was spoken. And I didn't feel there was a pressure of performance, which then that troubles a child, of course. There's pressure to perform. And with him, I could just go for a walk and look at, lilies of the valley and appreciate the silence and the bird song. And he wasn't going to say, what are you thinking, or what are you doing, or why did you do this, why did you do that. So I can imagine him with a profession like that, just being. With him it was okay to be, and he was the first person I've met in my life who accepted me to just be, I think. And that was very important, and it must have been true because the whole is true. After all they've been through, which was a totally different type of trauma.
Do you ever give any little present? Oh.
Used to give me occasional little crosses to put on my silver bracelet. This was one of the other things that got stolen in one later version. I'm looking at baby pictures of my son into. Mainly, and holy cards, it was mainly inspirational words. And that was very nice. Or he'd been over a cozy to the convent to my room if I was into it. And that was very good. And after stepmothers were just always very silent. I found it very hard to speak at all. And he'd just come and say, why don't we go for a walk? And that was okay because I knew it wasn't an excuse to. What she's thinking, what he's saying, what she's doing.
He was very, very keen on the idea of the physical could be restorative.
And certainly he chose a good place for me to go, because it was a completely with Mortefontaine, which had been so like a prison in every way. The nuns were so severe and so unbending and so ungiving. And I can imagine participating in that, not allowing me to receive or send out mail. I can imagine that. It's pretty, says something about the Dominican nuns too, doesn't it? That the same order that Epiphany were a healing and gentle doing, making meals for each other and for the community, and just living quietly and not disturbing or being disturbed. It was a very silent world. I found that very hard. I found the lack of music very impoverishing, which is, I think, quite interesting to the social. That was a great treat to actually hear melody and everything that would remind me of security of a world in which music was important. And I think he did all those things as an instinctively, really, which was great.
I think other people I've spoken to, they say that he wasn't intrusive. Sometimes he would talk about his own childhood or himself.
He never talked about himself to me at all.
Perhaps it was just different circumstances.
Oh, sure.
And this, he himself would rather describe the things that would sort of often come to him. They both lived in New York, and talking to a drink, he said, well, sometimes he would just come himself, he wouldn't say anything, he would just really, he'd be very troubled.
I didn't get the impression he was a happy man. I think he was a troubled man, but he did know how to keep it, well, certainly with me. It was inappropriate. I wasn't in the state of mind that I could have coped with listening to horror at that stage. But he would seem not ill at ease, actually, but as if his life was a hard one. And part of that I interpreted in my mind that poverty as in lack of funding and finding it that she struggled to have enough to eat. And I used to wonder about things like, how did you pay the rent, or you didn't seem to be working for anything that would give you money. You seem to be doing a lot of voluntary work, but I don't know what that means.
He was unemployed. He was hoping that he might get a job in child psychiatry in France. But he didn't materialize, and his job came nothing.
Would that be because of the language?
It had been, how was his French?
He was the only person I could speak English to, so I presume it was okay. And coming from Canada, probably he'd been brought up with a background.
They had been brought up in Canada.
Oh, I see.
He was born in Mexico.
Oh, I see. So maybe it was a struggle, and I can't remember that he struggled with the language. I can't remember him having difficulty with it, but then... No, I can't remember if he spoke with a funny accent or not. Because our interchanges were in English and fluent last. I didn't hear anybody who speak English. It was rather nice. So a man of great depth. It's so sad that Dr. Almstead is dead, and so he would have been able to help you a lot. Corinne Hutt died, the psychologist who was her husband, John Hutt. John Hutt went to Leeds University, but I don't know where he went after that. And I don't think he knew Dr. Thompson. I think he was probably 2 or 3 generations staff after that. Aunt Mary Horde, the secretary, died of cancer in 1962, I think. Mrs. Oxlade, Frida Oxlade, the name to after her. She was one of the teachers who would have overlapped. Frida Oxlade, and she still lives in Oxford if she's alive.
Oxlade?
Oxlade.
Alright.
Yeah. I think she was German origin.
And this name, this is Leyard. That name really interests you.
I think that was one of my next landladies.
There is also John Leyard, who was a Jungian therapist, an anthropologist. No.
So it could have been him, if you wanted. Because we did cross-fertilise a bit conversation with Mark, Warneford and Zinnick. And into visit and send patients and parents particularly to and from that. Well, of course, that might be her. But Elizabeth Toe, run the man past her.
Okay.
And she comes up with it probably more than Warneford, because she visited the Warneford a little, but not much.
You don't remember what this Leyard did?
No, not unless they were landlords of mine. He was a very absent-minded professor, chap who was very Scottish and very meagre in electricity and heating and lighting. Everything had to always be turned off. When I was supposed to feel the cold yesterday, I remember that. Whether that was they or not, I do not know.
Okay.
I'm just trying to remember my GP's name, and I think I called him. I looked in my book. I think I must have called him by that name in the book. He's a little Philip. And I don't think I saw any reason to change his name.
Okay. They always, when I spoke to the Rosenbaum, they always got through.
Oh.
And I never worked out, I don't think will work.
No.
I can...
Because it wasn't legal. It wasn't a legal adoption. It was just a court order that was just... I don't even know if it was formalised and if there would be papers that pertained to it. I think it was a gentleman's agreement for people members not to have anything to do with it because she was unfortunate.
It would have been... He was the legal guardian of Sebastian. Wolfgang, their guardian. But they regard him, both boys regard him as the father. So that was sort of recognition. And in the case of Matthias, his mother was very strong. There was the problem with Matthias was that he, I mean, not only was this trauma of losing his father, Matthias was very depressive, very sensitive, and
did he not say he took his own life?
yeah, he did.
I was quite young.
After he qualified in medicine, he wanted desperately to be analysed and interested in personal analysis, and then went back to Germany and became very depressive.
Nobody recognised and putting the right medication. Maybe it wasn't available then.
I don't think John Thompson was himself in favour of medication. Of course, the German doctor may have. There was a problem. I think Matthias himself was over-medicating.
And maybe it was a wrong type.
Could be as well.
Medicating. What's your field? You're a professor of medicine.
No, I'm a historian.
Oh, I see. Now, what
I do history of medicine.
Oh, I
see.
Historian. I just wanted to feel with that because it's amazing how good the antidepressants can be now. You just wonder why one.
What I know about John Thompson is that he really was not very keen on medication. He moved in a direction that was very, he met Laing, very enthusiastic about Lang's work, and they appeared to have got on with each other and sort of recognised that they were thought.
It's a shame he didn't write more. I wonder why he didn't. I wonder if it was lack of confidence or lack of time or... He was a very humble man. Maybe it was the former who certainly never noticed himself. You can't be very difficult to find what he even did unless you asked. It was very hard to ask, to serve that lesson, to say, well, what do you actually do? Don't if you say that, you just sort of gradually observe and think, well, you don't seem to be doing anything, how does the money come in,
Did you ask him that?
No. No, but I sort of gradually came to the conclusion when he said, oh, I have to go off to work. I thought, well, what does that mean? The job and money, and maybe he'll become solvent, and obviously that must be what's needed.
That was absolutely right. Yeah. In that was he needed that enormously.
Because I don't know how Eau Vive functions in terms of money. I know how the convent Harlequin function, but it was because people had to do things for their keep and had to be productive in some way. Then the nuns had to tend the gardens or see to the sick in the village or something that would bring them something. Oh, just come in here, darling, and see the good dog. Yesterday I was lying on the floor and she loved me lying on the floor. She decided that lying on me was the very best way of getting dry after her sleep, so she would lie on her face if she didn't say.
He really was not. 54, he was, from December 54, he come to an end of it.
So that incident then when he died in the British Virgin Islands,
US
Virgin Islands, and then one does wonder what was he doing there anyway.
He was on holiday.
Okay. Fair enough, he must be on holiday.
That's clear, but... that he liked going there, and he developed an enthusiasm for underwater fishing. Now, it is actually interesting. When I rang Mr. Pierce, he said, "Oh yes, John Thompson. He was the person who set up the aquarium."
Oh, really? Oh, right. Oh, right. So that's why I decided he had to be chief of the thing that couldn't actually do it. And he hated picking up the food with these two items. Oh, isn't that good?
And it's sort of interesting that he should have been so enthusiastic about what the fish tank can be for the children. I think it's a fascinating thing. And then it resonates on to this later in life when Thompson thought he calls himself with scuba diving gear and an underwater camera.
But he wasn't a totally practical man, and it could well be that he didn't do proper diving technique and didn't have right oxygen and stuff.
That was also said that he didn't observe certain runoff away from the diving button.
So how old would you be then?
69.
Oh, that's too young, isn't it? And there's been nothing in the work you've done that suggested foul play, that anybody was jealous of anything he was doing or researching, or... Because it's amazing the amount of jealousy in hospital research. John Hutt had one of his most wonderfully important papers on autism stolen and republished by another hospital, and Alfred was always having trouble with his epileptic papers, and when I worked at Sydney Hospital, Randwick, the interdepartmental rowing, in the end I said, I can't work with you guys, you know, I'm actually writing a book on chronic pain, I don't want to solve problems.
He, just at the same time, his friend Milton, right, he came from Cincinnati.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's where he grew up, Cincinnati.
Well,
Milton was Jewish.
Maybe that was the connection with stepmother then. Oh no, because Daddy was married to my mother when he was in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Stepmother was except later.
Because Natasha kept mentioning your stepmother's name.
Yeah.
And said that she was very interested in church music.
Apparently, she ended up in a convent outside Montpellier, where she must have donated money to have a little stone cottage and to be looked after by the nuns until she died. She died only a few years ago, 3 or 4 years ago.
Was she interested in music therapy at all?
Yes. Now the horn player, Australian, came up to see me and had a meal and said that he'd met her in Switzerland, where she did seem a very poor little creature. He didn't mean financially, he meant as a human being. She felt she'd lost her status and her importance, and she was planning to study music therapy with the view of doing it with children, but apparently never got that far. Barry Tuckwell, and Barry Tuckwell met her on a few occasions in Switzerland when she was involved in the music therapy. But that was a 5-minute conversation back in the 80s sometime. I don't know if she ever actually did anything after the course, and I don't know if she completed the course even.
It was both I showed you a picture of Jeremy Hooper.
Yes.
And his mother Alice Hooper, friendly with the Spenders, and there was a daughter, he had a sister who was in Oxford as well, briefly, I think. So they all mention Marjorie Goosens. So I knew of you from this letter about...
Yes, so what did it actually say?
About your lodging and that there's been a misunderstanding with the payment script. Or non-payment script.
Yes, in fact I had to pay for it out of my salary from Rose House. I worked there part-time, which paid my rent, and then I had a second job which paid for my tutorials at Fishline Tutorial College, because otherwise the bills weren't going to get paid, and I didn't want the disgrace of my convent that I'd been not really accepted back into after I was sick because of the non-payment fees. And I don't understand why any of that was necessary, because stepmother was very wealthy in her own right, and Dad had entrusted me to her, and Dad was helping with money. He wasn't just sorting me for school fees, so it could be that she was standing her ground and saying, well, she's your daughter, you pay, and Dad was simply rather than remember to send money. It wouldn't have been any nastiness. He earned a lot of money. He would have had enough. It wouldn't have been that he didn't have enough. He probably just forgot. Because he seemed to forget that I wasn't there for 2 years too. And would like to imagine why, because he was very busy. And I couldn't afford emotionally to be hurt by that. I made a laugh. The fact that Dad was too busy for all that and stepmother should be doing it anyway. But it must have been very frustrating for Dr. Thompson, because his dad was earning what was the equivalent of more than the Prime Minister of Australia's salary at the time was not brought up in Parliament, so he couldn't afford it. So there must have been great resentment about, but then why did she take me with her?
The other thing about John Thompson coming in, you see, he knew the Spenders from sometime during the Second World War, I think probably, certainly from 1944 onwards. He always was visiting them.
Well, stepmother would have done her time at Leyard. We left in 45, 46, and she was already a diplomated consigned from Leyard. So she and Natasha lived in London, started at the same time then, in the 40s. That would have been their connection, if it is. And probably a new series of musicians would show us whether Natasha lived in was a student at Leyard. It's a real Sherlock Holmes work for you, isn't it?
Yeah.
What links up with who and why?
It's as if there is a double link then in John Thompson. Someone is brought in to a link to a French childhood psychiatrist, and he knows someone who is a close friend of your mother.
Stepmother.
Stepmother's son. Yes.
Yeah. Strange. So how far are you with it? You just making notes?
No, I'm going to be finishing, I think the first draft will certainly be finished by September. I've got them just sort of finishing off the New York chapter. I mean, there's always more to do, and now I found all that stuff from the Oxford Clinic, and I have to sort of feed that into the Oxford chapter, and of course, today, incorporate.
And by the looks of things, Elizabeth was there when John Thompson was there, and she'll probably know a whole lot of inside information I never knew that they didn't want me to know. You know, they might have thought I was this and they didn't know. Because they didn't protect and shield me like parents did.
I mean, the thing that I would really, really like is to find actual case records of children who
Well, Lucy Faithful would have been the children's officer, I assume, during the period he was at the child housing clinic, and if not, there would be a record of who succeeded her. And there must be, being a government department, there must be education department records, and they weren't allowed not to put records, were they? Or did they get lost or something?
Oxfordshire Public Health records were mainly destroyed. And there was the takeover of the council services by the National Health Service. What I've probably got to do is find the equivalent reports for Oxfordshire.
Yes.
Because it would have been both, and I know John Thompson was also working in other clinics around Oxfordshire.
Probably Whitney and Bensham.
So there would have been more or less two administrative structures. I don't know whether it was primarily city there, but
City and county.
So there must also be county, a medical officer for the county,
Yes.
School medical officer, so I need to try and get hold of those reports. But even these reports are difficult to find. I mean, there wasn't...
And yet Armstead was a meticulous record keeper. I wonder if the hospital archives would have any of the CGC stuff in it, heaving the clinical director of those.
Okay.
Might have kept some of the stuff up there.
There have been some of the hospital records that have been subsequently checked.
But that would of course post-date.
Yeah, because Park Hospital was only just set up.
No.
It just when John Thompson was there. So the other idea I had is to try and work out there's something called school psychology. So it must be the modern successor. And to see whether they have any records. It had never been deposited as text because it would be a lot of records.
Yeah.
We're going to keep from all the way back to the 1950s.
Well, it's funny really that records get lost. My GP in Australia wanted to see records with my accident in the local family to see the extent of my injuries, because otherwise it all just went on my memoir. And the reason that we couldn't have them was they'd been eaten by mice. They'd got mice into the medical records office of the Radcliffe Infirmary, and all the patient records had been eaten by mice and were When I went to Sydney and I was working in a mental hospital for autistic and imaginative services, they tried to replicate it up to a point where they used to just pray for a team such as the one we had at Sorbonne Clinic, because we didn't see the whole family as a whole at all. It was all fragmented, and records were coming from other consultants from other departments who weren't getting on because they weren't speaking and all that sort of nonsense.
The whole family came in?
To the clinic, yes. The whole family had to come. And Dr. Armstead had a wicked way of words and paperless saying, the father, it's obvious what the father does, and as soon as I learnt that he was paranoid cement mixer, we could see where the trouble lay and this kind of thing. And he'd leave it up to me to not put that in the letter. I thought I loved the paranoid cement mixer. I thought that was really nice. Did not put that in relation to the CMO.
It's unfortunate how quickly these things get lost, and I thought that it was just back to the building still there.
Yes, it's so unfair. And some years I've got no idea where they might be.
No, we tried to use a bit. It's a bit awkward for him going back so far.
Oh, really? I'm surprised. Tom is very bright. In fact, he and Ursula are part of one of the university tests for Alzheimer's. Yeah. They're doing a double-blind group of people who are completely free with the note who are showing signs of dementia.
But he remembered about fish tank, and I was terribly grateful for the fish tank, because I think I can use that as a sort of a bit of a metaphor, actually, and it resonates then on to John Thompson's own case. Did you ever go driving with John Thompson?
I must have, but I don't remember. Was it a bit of a changing gear and shudder experience?
His brother was in the sports car. He used to have this little sports car.
Yes.
He had to go around to the clinics and so on.
Yes, of course. I don't remember him driving me around, but he must have.
These letters are the best. They're the only letters, they're the only writings which really provide his philosophy, because he talks a lot about schizophrenia and so on in the letters. It's not a full collection.
And
He never took his own monastery crazy. He used to go to these Benedictine monasteries. They came from the widow of Sebastian.
So she must have been young too, and she crossed her to give it to you.
Yeah, but I thought from this is one of the notes in German. This isn't a complete correspondence. I realised that oh God, I haven't had the
Oh wow.
No, she didn't. She wanted well.
So that was obviously after the camera. I see that.
And that was photocopy and tape. You can photograph it.
All our films, all our cameras are out of memory today, and he goes on up to London. Well, it would be nice to have a photograph of that particular one.
Yeah, of course.
I haven't got any letters from him. I don't know why that is. I don't know if I had them and they got lost in the hundreds of which we put it in.
I'll find it. I think the order is a typical thing. You must have put the card that was given you. And he kept in his own wallet. I've even got one of the religious notes sort of things attached to his terribly insane.
Yes, so you see that this is a French card to carry with me in his head. Even in his conference.
Someone called Ursula.
No, there was an Ursula on the staff at the clinic. Isn't that who I just said? The lady who was the German with the German name, surname that I had you write down? Oh yes, Ursula Pitt, yes. Isn't she Tom and Ursula Pitt? Tom's wife.
No, Ursula Smith, who worked in Paris.
Oh no.
She was the UNESCO administrator. And who, I think, was the one never met. Well, unfortunately, they never met.
So Wolfgang was the third person. Wasn't another name for Matthias?
No, Wolfgang is the brother of Sebastian. He did this apprenticeship in Germany. And his own health, I would say his own mental health background.
Again, because he went through such terrible things? Or anyway?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the reason is whether John Thompson himself felt that there was say that even someone like Sebastian, as you know, who became a very successful psychiatrist and worked with schizophrenic, social psychiatry, whether he was this is just Wolfgang and John
Interesting, the clinic we worked with Groningen, that's not Groningen, is it? We had to have for the test to attend our hospital, we had to have a hospital where they'd allow us to do double-blind studies, and we used the neurological clinic at Groningen, and that's just was similar.
John Thompson had never done that at that time.
Oh, we were funded. I mean, we had to do it to get the grant.
He wouldn't have been just flicking through these things. Things at Oxford.
But beyond Oxford then?
Mainly in New York. I keep them in. I try and... The problem is he doesn't
always get the day.
He doesn't ever get the day, virtually. It's all Tuesday morning.
Oh,
well, occasionally I'm lucky, and then I have to try and...
You've had to work it out.
Work it out, so I have a...
It's a long list then. It was lovely if you kept up with them.
But it's a one-sided correspondence to Sebastian. And the funny thing is, look, there's some letters are totally short.
Yeah.
And it was as if they were going to be burned.
Yeah. Rescued. Would that be the widow?
Well, that's an interesting question. I wonder whether it was Sebastian at some stage. But then thought, no.
Oh, but why would he have kept his own letters? The ones he never sent?
No, these were John Thompson's letters to Sebastian.
Yes, the burnt ones.
The burnt ones were also, they're the same correspondence.
But aren't they in Sebastian's handwriting?
No.
Oh, that's what...
They're the brother, these are Wolfgang, and John then sent them to Sebastian, because he wanted Sebastian to look after Wolfgang. He was trying to engage with his brother.
He knows what means.
He's happy that his books have arrived. Yes, the art books are here, and he's happy that his books have arrived. He had a therapist who didn't have enough money to pay for the books to come over.
His whole life was impoverished even then. So he was working only very sporadically.
When he had the position from 58 to 65 at Albert Einstein and had a practice, that he was also spending money on all sorts of philosophy, but his brother, who was also living here, he used to sort of have one idea that someone could become a tremendous ballet star, so he said, look, we'll get to fix up the ballet star all like flat and so on. Absolutely impossible. They had all these schemes with
yes, well that's certainly how I remember him, certainly.
Interesting, he remembered any. His brother said that among the people he knew in France was Camus.
Oh, yes.
And Jenny.
Oh, really?
Somebody else knew that.
I studied them at the Anti-Catholic course, but...
He didn't say. It would be very typical. It would be very typical.
He didn't not to say.
Oh, absolutely.
When I was studying my test, you couldn't believe what he said.
There are many instances of where he doesn't. Sometimes he puts people in touch with each other, but it's very, would they go and see some of the film or something? But it's always very. He thinks about it. This is going to survive the living. If he doesn't. I don't know. He didn't want to name drop or.
No, he certainly didn't.
You see, that was That might be a reason. There's a family named Slavitsky, and they lost their father in an air accident, Michel and Vladimir. And now, John Thompson, he had the correspondence with their mother, Laing, and he realizes that the mother is completely competent to look after the two boys. She occasionally asks him for advice, but he really doesn't intervene directly. And it was more, I think, he was always very concerned what the relationship is, particularly with the mother. That was always, I think, that he felt. Because I think for some reason, he felt that he didn't have the love from his own mother that he should have once had.
So, his own background was disturbed to start with.
His own background, he felt this very strongly. But truthfully, if one looks at it, and I was able to go, I've talked to a sister who's still alive, and to a brother, who died only very recently, and reconstructed, more or less, looked at records through the schooling and so on. He had a very strong sibling rivalry with his elder brother. That was enormously strong.
Who became, what does his brother become?
Philip. There were 5 children. And what happened was that...
He was such a solitary man, you imagined him, when I knew him, to be an only soul in the world.
Right. So,
he had that impression.
Grew up in Mexico, and the father was an American electronic engineer. And the mother was from a family who'd been in Mexico for 3-4 generations, but originally from Scotland. And it's then the very late 18th century. But were very Anglican. And the mother, John Thompson, you can say, his grandfather was a sort of grandee with a big estate. But it was in the decade before the First World War, there were enormous political unrest in Mexico, revolution, and the brother was kidnapped at one stage by his guerrillas that held to ransom. 2 elder boys were sent to school at Palo Alto, which is where the father had studied electronic engineering, and where his grandmother, the father's mother, was still living. So, and I think it was probably because of the insecurity there. And it was the father who was a very quiet mathematician, but the parents seemed very happy and caring, and talking to Frank and the 2 younger children, Frank and Margaret. It seems to be really quite a happy, progressive, a very progressive, kind, supportive family. Now, for some reason, John, when he was sent off with his brother, there seems to be an enormous tension between the 2 boys. That he wrote later in life even a drama about it. And they fell both in love with the same girl. So, it was dramatic. That's not something you used to visit her later in life.
Because I always wondered why he didn't marry, because he was such a lovely man, and you could imagine from the way he was, that he would be such a loving parent. And he did parent so many people.
He had married. But the marriage didn't last very long at all. Married in 1938, and there were his close friend Milton, who viewing already in Boston in the late 30s, told me about the whole sequence of romance.
Oh.
So he really...
Yes, he was a fine-looking person as well as being so lovely. You know, you can't imagine a girl not falling for that.
So there were these...
Yeah.
Later, the first person I spoke to said, well, in his view, John Thompson was actively gay. But having looked carefully, and he also wrote about homosexuality. He was very concerned about the homosexuality of Roman Catholicism and so on. It doesn't...
That would have sat very uncomfortably with him, because at the time the church was so strongly against it, and although it still voices being against it, practice fairly openly and comes up.
He was very concerned about, I can say, the sexual molestation. Absolutely. Totally critical against any sort of... He's a very, very moral.
Well, yes, yes. I mean, in fact, my conclusion was that he hadn't married because he was more a vocational man of God, and who happened to be a lay, like in the lay ministry, was the impression he gave to a child, and he felt completely safe in his company. Whereas, as an adolescent, there would have been a heap of discomfort with other adults. With him, he felt very much a father figure. And yet I didn't think of him as my father. He wasn't a replacement dad to me.
But you are very attached to your father.
Him as my dad is a very different sort of role, but my father wasn't a good father in any way, but he still was my dad. Whereas Dr. Thompson was a fatherly person. He took on the role of fathering people and looking after, caring for them in a caring way, and checking that they were okay.
I'm not really sure who was actually gay, and I've seen correspondence with boyfriends of all and so on. The tone of any letters or any correspondence with Thompson is completely different.
Right.
But he writes in a letter during the war, I've been visited by John Thompson, who is defending soldiers who are being prosecuted for homosexuality. So he goes as a psychiatrist, he's a military tribunal, and protects them. And this is also something that he was doing with Natasha Spender and Lord Longcliffe.
Oh, no, was that one involved in the, do you know affairs later?
Oh, I don't know about that.
That was 59, 60 at the Ashes, and Christine Keeler, and Mandy Ross Davies, and all that crowd.
There was a great deal of, to liberalise the laws on homosexuality, and also there was, what they were doing seems to have been some sort of organisation to against those who had been prosecuted and imprisoned for homosexuality, to somehow provide rehabilitation for them when they came out of prison. And that was...
Oh, not as in the rejecting electric shock treatment when they saw pictures of...
Well, that's also something that John Thompson did. He was totally opposed to there's a dramatic letter from Eau Vive when some French psychiatrist really wants to do electric shock treatment on a child, on an adolescent, and John Thompson says, no, I'm not going to let you near him, I'm going to hide this boy. And he has a clash with the authorities because he's so against things like intimate shock treatment and electric shock and PCT, and he's totally against them. And he notices he would protect and set up signs for parents and puts this boy back on his feet, because he says it's a very dramatic set of letters and describes the boy as There's a very confrontation about the French authorities. So he is a bit of a puzzle in terms of his own sexuality. But that is the conclusion which I've reached. That he's very undemonstrative. He's romantic in these, but he can never transform a romantic relationship into a marriage. And
so that he was really living a dream in some ways when it came to idealizing relationships.
Yeah, I think he did. I mean, there was an idealism there about the mother's relations with the child and the importance of mothering and that sort of thing.
Related to his son,
absolutely, yeah. Certainly, another couple I've got, did you know before? Some people say he certainly knew Anna Freud. I mean, he knew a lot of people.